Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of the Bell Falls Search Focus on Talent video series. This is the technology edition. Although this is episode 9, this is the first time we've been interviewing a technology executive. Today's guest is the founder and CEO of a software consulting firm that creates custom mobile applications, partner with businesses to build Internet of Things solutions, and also has significant expertise in Salesforce implementations. He's a great friend of mine. We've worked together in the past, and I'm a huge fan of the company he has built, the culture he's created, and the authentic person that he is. I'm honored to have with us today, Jacob Glenn of mGenio. Jacob, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ron. I appreciate the kind words and have many of the similar things to say about you.
I appreciate it. You know, I've been watching you do video interviews for a while now on LinkedIn, so you've been kind of an inspiration for me to kind of get off my butt and start doing this. So thanks for that. And can you kind of walk backwards and talk about your career progression and on to now, running your own consulting company, and then talk about mGenio, please.
Sure. Yeah. So I started my career at Highland Software, actually. And, right out of school, I got a computer engineering degree and I got a business degree. Right out of school, I went to Highland Software, was in their professional services group, and that was first of many professional services positions where I was doing either software or project management or insert specific tasks. But really, I kind of grew up in the consulting world, always kind of on like the innovation side of technology. So jumped through a lot of positions, was at Brulant with you. And then not long after I left, I guess it was Rosetta at the time, I went to a company called Backend Solutions where instead of being kind of frontline services, I actually was building a technology center for them. So instead of delivering the service, I was building the team behind the scenes that did the delivery, and took that from 2 to over 50 people in about 2 years. Set up a model there that let us recruit and scale. Learned a lot from that, and then decided to go out on my own. And so back in 2012, started mGenio. Originally, we were going to be a mobile-only firm that lasted about a day because our first project wasn't mobile. But over time, we've kind of refined our niche. And so today we do custom software development, mobile, cloud, and IoT. Mobile is pretty straightforward. It's mobile apps or mobile web. Cloud is mostly serverless cloud, which is, again, it's kind of on what I would say on the innovation side of cloud development, right? We're moving towards that, as an industry. We've been doing that for a while. And that was actually naturally led into IoT, which is Internet of Things for anyone who doesn't know. We're doing connected device work, but we're doing the cloud work and the app work for connected device, and working very closely with people who do the hardware and firmware stuff. And then of course we do Salesforce.com as well. That came from our acumen experience, and is another offering, kind of falls in that cloud bucket.
I think you mentioned earlier that Salesforce just bought Acumen, right? So that core team that you built over there, it's now been kind of realized from a value perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. So when I left, it was 50. I think now in Cleveland, they're like 250 or 300. Take a little pride in the fact that it was the model that I built there that scaled to that. But yeah, so they were acquired last year for a good amount, and they're now part of the Salesforce.
Gotcha. So at mGenio, do you have an industry focus? I mean, I know you've done some stuff in consumer products. I know you've done some stuff in healthcare. Are you agnostic, or do you focus in any one area?
I mean, ultimately we're agnostic. It's really about that innovative technology. We kind of partner with our customers, and we take a very kind of like technology agnostic, strategic approach to how do we solve the problem. So that could apply to any industry. We do have specific industry experience in healthcare. We have industry experience in kind of manufacturing consumer goods, building products. That's an area we have some experience. And then insurance, financial services, we have some experience there as well.
Okay. So good transition. I'd love to talk about case studies if you're willing to share a few, or one or two, and would love, especially if you could talk, unless it's top secret, about a Internet of Things case study potentially, because I find those the most interesting. It's one of those words, one of those buzzwords that lots of people talk about. You're actually putting it into practice, and I know you've done it multiple times, as we've discussed over our lunches. But tell me, if you don't mind, can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk about Moen because one, it's probably the most well known, but also it's a really good example of our process. So Moen decided they were going to develop a smart faucet a few years ago. We got engaged with them very early on, helped them with the strategy and architecture, and then rolled into, we actually did all the cloud development and the mobile app development for the initial faucet. We worked with their internal and partners who were doing the firmware and the hardware design, and all of that interfacing. We worked with them through the launch, and then we continue to work with them today on their IoT roadmap. They're about to launch another product that was announced at CES this year. It's the sump pump monitor. We've worked on their connected whole house valve that you can shut off your water if there's a leak, kind of thing. So we've worked with a lot of different stuff there, but the faucet was a fun one because it was really end to end, from architecture through launch, and we really owned the cloud and the mobile pieces of that, and won a ton of awards. It was advertised on the Super Bowl, and the highlight for my team, it was made fun of on the Daily Show.
What part was that?
So at CES, the Daily Show did a segment where they went and they were making fun of the most ridiculous things at CES, and they highlighted the faucet, and they made fun of how a lonely person needed to talk to their faucet. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, I don't know. We've done lots of back-end solutions that people actually never see. Kind of the architecture and the extent of development, but to see something actually on a commercial and then on the Super Bowl had to be pretty fulfilling, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, especially when we've done a lot of B2B stuff where we do cool stuff, but it's not really front and center. And like, for example, right, we just finished a project for Amazon and Whole Foods where they have a locker system that they put the phone, they use for checking in and out phones for their Prime shoppers who go through Whole Foods and do the shopping and delivery. It's behind the scenes. Nobody ever sees it, right? But it's actually really cool technology that we built there. But it's not on the Super Bowl commercial. So that's why I like to talk about the Moen case study as a good one.
Cool. Do you have another one you want to share?
I don't know if I have like another one. I would call out the specific customer, but I can tell you some of the ones that are the most fulfilling are the ones where we get to be involved at a strategic level, right? So we worked with a startup that we helped them to develop their initial product, help them. They were going to go raise money. They brought us in. I served as an interim CTO. We helped them sell the company, actually. Instead of raise money, they ended up selling it to a Fortune 100. And then we did a full integration with that Fortune 100's backend systems, right? So it was really fulfilling to be able to take that from, hey, this is just a concept, to a fully integrated, someone had a great exit on that. We were able to participate all through that process. And so those are the more fulfilling ones where you get to be involved in that.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so let's shift to talent a little bit. So, and I know you've, back to your acumen days and the times we worked together, and even with the team you've built at mGenio, you've done, one of the best jobs I've ever seen at, taking young talent and developing them into, highly, I'll say, productive, efficient, very successful developers and individuals. So could we talk about, from your perspective, for new students coming out of college, or maybe, thinking about it in the next couple of years, what would you suggest to them, both from a concentration in school perspective, what classes are important, what technologies are emerging, what common themes do you think are important to set themselves up for success? And then, potentially maybe kind of sprinkle in there how to go about looking for their next role.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, thank you. Very, very kind words about what I've done. I think that a lot of that's attributed to what we hire for, right? So, like I fully subscribe to the idea that you hire for attitude and aptitude and not a specific skill set. And so I layer on top of that we are a culture-driven organization. And so we look for cultural fit as a key part of that attitude and aptitude assessment. So it's not about what you've done, but it's what you can do, what that foundational skill set is, and then how well you fit. What do you want to do and how that fits with what we're trying to accomplish. So when you talk about, someone who's in school and they're looking to go out and find what, that first job, I think a lot of it comes down to really stepping back and thinking about what they want to do, right? So in their classwork, what do they really like? What could they see themselves doing a lot of? Not just like a class where you enjoyed a project or two, but like, hey, I could see myself spending 40, 80 hours a week doing this. A lot of times when we hire, we ask, what side projects have you done? What projects, especially with developers, what project do you do for fun? Like, what do you do for fun, right?
Yep.
Generally, the answer to those questions are video games, which tends to go hand in hand with good developers for whatever reason. Or, they'll say, oh, I had this side project, or I had this project where I did X, right? I have a relatively newer hire who we hired last year, came out of school, he was at Ohio State, and he was like, his answer to that question is, I built an app because my friends and I would be in the car and we'd fight over whose Spotify was running the radio. And I built an app that let us all kind of join a group and like add to the Spotify playlist. So, that was a great example of like, okay, this is someone who will solve a problem.
Yep.
and they'll do it for fun,
Yep.
right? Like, and so that's the kind of thing that we look for. Like when we're hiring someone who's got that initiative, who has that like love of programming where they'll do it to solve their own problems, not just because it's a job. So that's a big part of it. So I think it's important to think about what you want to do. I know that when I was getting my first job, I interviewed a lot of different places, and my answers were what I thought would get me the job, right? Would get me the offer. And I figured, well, if I can get more than one offer, I'll figure out which one is the best fit and I'll go there. And there's something to be said for that, right? Like, obviously, one job is better than no job. And so, you don't want to not get the offer. But I think there's a lot of value in thinking about what you want to do and where you'll be a good fit. A lot of times when I talk to folks today, it's clear that they don't know what they want to do or what type of organization they want to work in, right? There's a big difference between a small organization and a Fortune 100, right? There's a big difference between working for mGenio and working for Mellon, right? Like, it's just a different person. And it's important for, as someone coming out of school, to think about what they want. Do they want that stability and the slow kind of growth that comes at a big corporation where you're going to get handed small things over time and you'll grow in a very structured way? Or do you want to be in a scenario where things are going to get thrown at you and may be chaotic, but you're going to learn a ton and you're going to learn it really fast, right? Or you're going to get to do more different things. And I think answering those questions will go a long way in finding the right fit for someone as they come out of school.
Okay. How does someone get into IoT?
So if you break it down, IoT is really, it's cloud, it's mobile, and it's hardware and firmware, right? And You can get into it by going down one of those paths, or you can get into it by, thinking about it as a whole ecosystem. And so I have folks on my team who do both cloud and mobile for an IoT project, or I have people who do just one. And if someone's younger and they just want to like learn and experiment, you can play with things like the Hue light bulb. You can go get an Arduino and connect it to some sensors and start to do stuff like that. We have a Bitcoin miner in the office,
Yeah.
and I was having an issue with it getting shut off, and so one of my guys took a little switch and an Arduino and built me an app and connected it to this switch so I could remotely turn the power on and off, stuff like that.
Well, and even my favorite is when I come to your office, the facial recognition product you cobbled together so that I could get in and out of the door. So
right, yeah, our access control system. Right. Yeah. Great example, right? So that was built on a Raspberry Pi, and we continue just to add components to it and connect it to the cloud, and now we have an app, and we have it integrated with Google Chat and all kinds of things.
Yep. Right? Very cool.
I think the answer to your question is the easiest way is to tinker, right? Like, go get an Arduino, go get a Raspberry Pi, connect it to the cloud. That's step one. Build an app. That's step two. Now see what you can like make useful or valuable.
Yeah. You've interviewed a lot of people over the years and hired and not hired a lot of people over the years. What advice would you give, those people out in the market, kind of thinking about their next thing and how to differentiate themselves in the interviewing process? For you, it's a little different because in technology, as both of us know, and as everyone knows, you can spell software, you can probably get 10 offers tomorrow, all for $100,000 each. So it's a little different. So sometimes you can kind of get away with maybe not the best interviewer or being prepared for presenting yourself. But at the same time, there's different roles, whether they're CTO roles or executive roles or project management consulting roles. I mean, what's been your experience there, and what do you like to see, and how do you help distinguish one candidate from another?
I think especially developers get a lot of leeway on their interviewing and social and communication skills. Personally, I think that's a little bit of a mistake, right? Like, I think if nothing else, the communication skills are really important, especially like in an organization like mine, where you're going to have to work with junior people and you're going to have to be able to communicate and not just like, it's not worth it, I'll just do it myself kind of, right? Like, but there are organizations certainly where all they hire is senior people and they all get their own little kind of piece of the pie and they go, pound on the keyboard. But I think when you look at, if you break those roles up a little bit and say the CTO or the VP or director role, I think there's a lack of people who can demonstrate an understanding of both the business and the technology. And I think that's where a lot of the value comes in those roles, right? So if you can bring those two things together and communicate it and demonstrate that you understand how they work together, and it's not just about, hey, I'm the CTO and we're going to build the coolest technology, or we're going to use this stack because I think it's best. But you can say, hey, I understand that, the objective of the business is to do X, and this is how we make money, and this is how the technology will enable that, versus it's just about the technology. That's where I think, you really set yourself apart, and, those people are really hard to find, and they can have any job they want, right? If they can communicate that they have that skill set.
Yep.
On the heavy tech side, right? Someone who wants to be in the code still, I think at a senior level, it's really about, okay, you can write great code, you can architect a great solution. How do you work with a team? How do you be a leader versus just a contributor, right? Because that's, to me, that's where the difference becomes the difference between a senior person who can command a high salary and someone who can, development, a lot of them get a high salary, whether they're senior or not now. But, there's that, that's the differentiation, is can you be a leader and can you bring people up with you versus just being someone who can write really great code, right? I think we are beyond the years where that one savant could like write a whole system, you know, and that's all you needed. Like that's not the world we live in anymore. So, and then I think for either of those sides of that, I would say, you know, networking, huge, right?
Yep.
When I decided to start my own company, one of the things that kind of enabled me to do that was the knowledge that I had a network that if I failed, which, I mean, you know me, I didn't believe I was going to, but if I did, I knew that I could leverage that network to fall back and find a position.
Yep.
And it was that understanding that let me take the leap, right? And I think it's really valuable to have that network.
I agree. Yeah, having that fallback and having other people you can tap into for advice, no matter who you are and what level you're at, is just my number one piece of my number one suggestion I give to everybody. You know, you've taught me a lot over the years around the right temperature to brew your coffee, the exact measurement in grams for how to make the best cup of coffee. You've introduced me to great beers, great restaurants. But and lots of cool, to your point, tinkering experiments that are really fun in your office. I'd say the number one thing you've shown me is good Vietnamese food, and you and I have had a lot of pho or pho around town. What are your top three favorite Vietnamese restaurants in Cleveland?
Yeah, well, I would say for the best Vietnamese food, find a Vietnamese family who will make it for real. Because my brother-in-law's family is Vietnamese, and you can't touch what they do at a restaurant. But if that's not an option, my number one is number one pho.
On Superior.
Number two is Pho Tang, and number three is probably Superior Pho.
Okay, awesome.
But I don't usually make it to number three because it's usually one or two.
Yeah, really appreciate your time. It's been a pleasure, and can't wait to share this with my audience.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ron.
All right, dude. Good luck.